I'm Sam,
And this is Gabe.
and this is Coaster Wars.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coaster Wars podcast, where we have a very fun episode for you today. This is the battle for last place. So what does that mean? These are the worst roller coasters that we have experienced, at least in our opinions. And we're going to pair them up against each other, and the winner is actually the loser. So we're going to argue why these are bad and which one's the worst.
The one downside that we have to this is that my coaster, Gabe, has not ridden, but has a very good reputation for being a horrible roller coaster. I don't know how that works, but...
Well, it was a prototype. It's a prototype model.
Yeah.
It's also the prototype roller coaster for that manufacturer. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did.
So, the first crack at things aren't always the best. I think this is a good example of if you get it wrong, try something else.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. But with that, why don't you introduce our fighters so we can really get into the nitty-gritty of this?
All right. In the red corner, standing at a height of 120 feet and reaching a top speed of 38 miles per hour, hailing from the deserts of Texas and the S&S gym, it is Batman the Ride. And in the red corner, standing at a height of 100 feet and reaching a top speed of 55 miles per hour, hailing from the farm fields of Illinois and the B&M gym, it is Iron Wolf. Let the fight begin. All right, so I'm using Batman the Ride just as my example, but this is just every S&S free spin ever created in existence. They're absolute trash, and that's just yeah.
And I am bringing what I think is the quite notorious Iron Wolf. If you've been to Six Flags Great America when this ride was around, you know that it is a super, the roughest steel roller coaster ever. It was absolutely horrible to ride, and I rode it once and I never rode it again.
Yeah. We can talk about Iron Wolf right away.
Okay.
Because it is a little bit of an interesting coaster, in my opinion.
It actually really is. After doing research into it, I'm like, I really wish, because the main complaint with Iron Wolf, real quick, is that, like I said, it was the roughness. And we've talked about other rides that are rough, but we kind of like the roughness, or it gives the ride character. Well, the problem with Iron Wolf was the restraint system. This was actually a B&M stand-up coaster, and it had over-the-shoulder restraints that your head kind of sat between, and from my personal experience, the roughness on this roller coaster made those restraints play ping-pong with my head, and I got off with a pounding headache, a headache so bad that I didn't want to ride anything else. Thankfully, I rode it at the end of the night on the way out of the park, so I didn't have to ride anything else.
Yeah. And that was probably about 98% of the reviews on this roller coaster is the ping pong and the roughness. Now, neither of us have been able to got to experience it when it first opened, so I can't attest to what it was when it was a brand new roller coaster. But even when it opened, if you go back and look at reviews of back in the 90s of this roller coaster, it was kind of the same thing. It was rough, uncomfortable, not very good, not very forceful, kind of boring. But here's the thing about Iron Wolf and why I think it's an interesting roller coaster. This is B&M's first ever standalone roller coaster. What do I mean by that? This is the first one they built, this is the first one they designed, and this is the first one they manufactured all on their own with their own trains and their own ride operating system. And so this is their first attempt at a roller coaster in general. And for that reason, I think it is I think it's important. I think it is. Just because this is where B&M got started. Not only was this their first model, it was their first coaster ever. once again, Six Flags Great America, they were kind of the testing ground for new designs and new roller coasters and new companies in this case. And well, B&M had been around for a few years, but this is the first roller coaster they built on their own. And so, you got to kind of think about it in that light. Was it that great? No. But it was a starting point. I mean, they figured out what they could and couldn't do, and they just said, okay, we're going to give up on this model and we'll go on to something else. Obviously, they've brought this model back twice. So in the early 2000s, they started building them again. And if anybody knows anything about roller coasters, they built the Surf Coaster, the Pipeline Coaster, down in Orlando at SeaWorld, and that is the newest version of the stand-up model from B&M. So it is an important model to them, and they've had some success with it. Green Lantern at Great Adventure is an incredibly underrated roller coaster, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Another stand-up. How would you compare this one to Green Lantern? Since I've ridden that and not this Iron Wolf.
Honestly, it was so long ago that I don't remember. All I remember, all that stuck out in my mind was just the roughness and the ping pong with my head. So going into Green Lantern, and even like Gabe did tell me that it had a reputation for being a little bit rough of a roller coaster. I was very, very scared going into Green Lantern, and we rode that ride, and I was like, I don't understand the complaints at all. It is nothing compared to Iron Wolf. So B&M really ironed out a lot of kinks that Iron Wolf had with it. And I agree with you too that it's an underrated ride. We had a lot of fun riding that roller coaster. So I think people should give it more of a chance than they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Green Lantern's one of my personal favorites at Great Adventure, and I don't think it's the worst coaster in that park. In fact, I don't even think it's the second worst coaster in that park. But that's besides the point. Iron Wolf for you is your worst coaster. This is also when you were a fairly new roller coaster enthusiast as well, because it shut down in 2011.
I wouldn't even call myself a roller coaster enthusiast at that point. It was a family trip to Great America that we had taken, and I remember this very specifically because none of us rode it throughout the entire day. We were literally on our way out of the park, and I was like, "Oh, Iron Wolf, that looks cool. Do you guys want to go ride it?" No one else wanted to ride it. I rode it alone. And I got off of it. I was like, "Oh my god, I understand why you guys don't ride that ride. That was absolutely horrible, and I hated it." So,
Yeah, it was a roller coaster that even because our parents, are more familiar with this roller coaster than we are. It was a coaster that they even said like it sucked. It was terrible. It was not a good experience. Even when you look at the stats, 100 feet tall, 90-foot drop, only 2,900 feet of track, 55 mile per hour top speed. It's not a stat monster either. I mean, by any means. I mean, 1990 maybe a little bit, but not. I mean, not on the same level as like a Raging Bull or a Batman, in my opinion. And I think this was a good roller coaster to tear out, honestly, what they did. I believe Goliath now stands in that plot of land,
yes, sir.
In the back of the park there.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just, this roller coaster, I can tell you right now, just from looking at the even the pictures, it's an ugly ass roller coaster. Like, it's not even good to look at. It's like, it's not good to ride. It's not good to look at. Like, this thing just sounds horrible from start to finish, honestly.
Yeah. Even though it's not a lot of fun, let's go into this layout. And, honestly, looking at the layout, it sounds better than it probably actually was. Because I'm like, if you just look at the layout, I actually didn't think it was that bad of a layout. So you have a small dip and a left turn out of the station that leads you into that lift hill. Cresting that lift hill, there's a little bit of a small pre-lift drop that leads you into the curved drop to the right, 96 feet down, reaches that top speed of 55 miles per hour. You're then plunged into the first inversion on the ride, which is just a vertical loop. And exiting that, you head up and to the right into a turnaround that then drops you to the left that heads into an ascending helix to the mid-course brake run. Dropping back off that brake run, you're sent through the corkscrew on the ride, and coming out of that corkscrew is a left turn, a small airtime hill that leads you into an S-curve. exiting that S curve, you have a banked right turn, a banked left turn that brings you up into the final brakes. Now, I'm not saying like it's not anything like crazy amazing or anything like that, but it doesn't actually sound like that bad of a layout. I think just it's the case like Gabe said. It was B&M's absolute first roller coaster. It was built in 1990. So you really have to like take this coaster for what it was at the time and the age of the company that built it. But then you also have to think it was built in 1990. 2 years later, B&M built Batman, which was the first inverted roller coaster, and it's haunted as one of the best inverted roller coasters. It was cloned a million times. So, like Gabe said, it's just sometimes you do something for the first time and you're still figuring things out. You found out what worked, you found out what definitely did not work, and you figured out what not to do in the future. So
Yeah, for sure. So what would this roller coaster be missing? Well, number one is zero G roll. B&M does the zero G roll better than anybody. So it's missing that. Incline loops like the one on Green Lantern, absolutely a blast. I love them when they're tilted a little bit. It just gives it a little bit more dimension to it. So it doesn't have that, right? Okay, Cobra roll, also missing that. B&M does Cobra rolls really, really well. You don't have a barrel roll of any kind. You don't have you only have one corkscrew instead of like the interlock corkscrews that B&M started doing. But so it's missing a lot of inversions, I think, in my opinion. It only has two. And that's really what the stand-up coasters were about, was inversions. Later on, like I think Green Lantern has 6 or 7 of them. And I think that's why, for me, I can understand why this would be the worst coaster on your list. It's just missing a lot. It sounds like it kind of wastes. I will say this: hearing the layout, it does sound like it wastes a lot of track.
mm-hmm.
So I can imagine. Like I said, I've never actually gotten to experience this roller coaster. In 2011, I was a little baby, so I was not permitted to ride on roller coasters due to my height. But yeah, I can just imagine. Just looking at the pictures, I'm like, it doesn't even look like a cool roller coaster. And that's sometimes an eye test is a real thing. Like if it passed the eye test, you go, okay, maybe this is gonna be fun. And then sometimes you're like, oh, that don't pass the eye test, and then you ride it, and you're like, huh, I wonder why.
Yep.
So, but I brought a fighter to this battle. That's gonna be hard to beat going for last place. And that is every SNS free spin in existence. They're all terrible, horrible experiences. I think they should tear them all down and just put up food stands. Honestly, I think that'd be a better use of space, in my opinion. And they're just, I don't get it. I just don't get it. They keep building them. People love them for some reason that I can't comprehend. I don't know. Maybe people like being a rag doll. But, like, it's just not fun. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here. I can appreciate them trying something new. I can appreciate them trying something completely different. I can appreciate the fact that they were trying to give you a ride experience that you literally can't get on anything else. I can appreciate the small footprint that these things have, allowing them to be built in tighter spaces where other roller coasters potentially could not be built. But none of that overshadows the fact that I don't believe that they're real roller coasters, and that only people who like these things are people who want a freaking carnival ride on steroids, because that's what it is. All it does is spin you. And I personally don't find spinning to be the most enjoyable experience. So, there's my opinion.
I don't mind spinning. I've had some great experiences on normal spin coasters, and even I've had a couple good experiences on these SNS free spins. But my biggest problem with these roller coasters is that if you're not 300 pounds and like the restraint barely clicks on you, you get tossed around in that seat. And you know how you said your head was a ping pong ball on Iron Wolf? Well, on these, your entire body is a ping pong ball. Like, just it's such a violent experience. And I know I said I like violent experiences, but not in this way. Like you are literally just like a ping pong ball or a tennis ball or whatever, just getting thrown around as you're spinning, and it's not in a comfortable manner. The restraints suck. Okay, the restraints are absolutely terrible. The ride experience is absolutely terrible. The wait times, because they're horrible for capacity, are just terrible. Like you'll
Mm-hmm.
sit in line for an hour, but there's only 10 people in line. They're like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's nothing good about these rides except I'll give it one thing. All right, they do look interesting.
Yes.
I'll give it that. I mean, like for a person who's never experienced them before, or just getting into the roller coaster community, I could see how visually you'd be like, well, it looks fun, but it's not. It's not. Don't. I mean, I ride them. I ride them once for credits, or in the case of Great Adventure, we just skipped it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just not a fun ride experience. It's violent. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. I hate it. Get rid of these things. Seriously.
Design something new already. I know. So looking up the actual mechanics, like when these were designed, they are included with magnetic kickers that are supposed to help induce some of that rotation. But I was like, you really have to have a super unbalanced car to get any kind of good rotation going. And I do know Gabe did tell one story where he was like the only one on his side. And if people don't know what free SNS free spins are, basically the car has two seats on one side and two seats on the other. And is there two seats in front of you too, or is that a separate car?
Yeah, so the car seats 8 people.
Okay, it does.
And so when you go into the station, the seats are facing each other, and you have two, and then on the other side of the track you have two and two, just like the B&M Wing coasters. Similar concept in the train design. The biggest difference is there's only 2 rows, I guess you could say, on each
Yeah.
side, and then they're facing each other. And then when you go up the lift, basically what happens is these seats stay level with the ground, and then you're like above the row below you, and then as you go through it changes. But
Yeah. So, but what I'm trying to get at here is that you need a really unbalanced, basically, car to get some good spin going, and that doesn't always happen. So, that's another thing is that so you sort of have to either go with a really unbalanced group weight wise or just luck into it by chance with these lines, which doesn't happen very often. So, even with those magnetic inducers, sometimes you don't get the greatest spin. Like, they have certain sections with the ride where it is designed to spin you, and you'll get thrown around maybe once or twice. But I remember Gabe telling me the one time where he went on this by himself, and he literally, like, he was, it stopped.
that was not a free spin. That was not a free spin.
Oh, it wasn't? I'm
No,
sorry.
that was a flat spin, like a traditional spinning coaster. That was not this
Oh,
thing.
okay. But anyways,
No, if I
the
spun 100 times on this roller coaster, I'd probably be dead. Like, that would just does not sound fun. Like, this roller coaster is almost better the less amount of times you spin, which is like completely defeats the whole purpose of the roller coaster.
It really does. And you know what? We're talking about this ride, and if someone doesn't know what an SNS free spin is, the best way I could describe it is it looks like a Donkey Kong level from Mario, like with the barrels. It's like you get pulled up vertically to the top, and you've got a row of track that's like squiggly, and you go across it, and then you drop down to the next level that's squiggly, and then you drop down to the next level that's squiggly, and then you drop down to the loading area. So that's another thing is this ride isn't very long either. So you feel like even if it has short trains, it should be able to eat through that line, and it just doesn't. Somehow it still takes forever for the operators to load this freaking ride.
Yeah, it's just the roller coaster experience from queuing to exiting is just not fun. I just don't. I can't comprehend somebody getting off this roller coaster and saying, I enjoyed that. And if you do, I think you need to go to a mental hospital, honestly. Like, it's just not fun. And it's not. And I understand the concept, and I really do, like you said, I appreciate, what they're trying to do. But I feel like, number one, a controlled 4D spin is better than a free spin. And number two, it's the little up and down squiggly parts that really make it uncomfortable because they try to get you to spin and rotate with the airtime. But if you're like facing the ground, then your back you get smashed into the seat. But if you're facing up, then you get smashed into the restraint. And it's not comfortable and it's painful and there's no reason for it to be painful. It's not like El Toro where at least you know why it's painful, right? Because it's extreme yes. ejector airtime. That's not what this is. And I think there's ways to do a 4D free spin, but I think I really like the concept of the controlled free spin like X2 or the one over in Japan that is from Arrow, where they have like a separate track that controls your rotation instead of having to have like little airtime pop things that get you to flip. And I just don't understand. I just don't understand how people think it's fun. And obviously people do because they keep building the damn things.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere
they're all
now.
over the place. So like somebody is liking the ride experience. It's just not me. I don't know. I don't get it.
I think it's a perfect example of everyone is entitled to their opinion, and me and Gabe just don't understand, but someone out there somewhere must like these things, and maybe part of it too is maybe me and Gabe are a little bit purist. Like, I don't even believe these things are truly roller coasters, but they're classified as that. That's what they're classified as. So
they roll and they coast. They roll and they coast. It's a roller coaster. They are technically roller coasters because they are they use a mechanical or way to get it up to speed, and then from there it coasts through the rest of the track, which is basically the definition of a roller coaster. So it is a roller coaster. It does fit the description. It fits the the general idea of what a roller coaster is, but it has no turns. It has no inversions, unless you count the flips. I guess that's an inversion. And I think they're just a waste of space. I really do. I can't get behind these things. Every time I ride one, like I said, I've had one or two good experiences, but that is like out of 100 bad experiences. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's another thing with these things is that you could ride technically the same SNS free spin 5 times in a row and never get the same experience on it. It's not consistent either.
No, exactly. And I think that's probably my most frustrating thing is my first ride on one of these things, the Joker at Six Flags Great America, the SNS free spin there. I absolutely loved. But then I never rode it for the rest of the day. I only rode it the one time. And then ever since, I've been like chasing that experience, but I haven't got it. In fact, it's gotten worse and worse every time I get on one of these damn things. And I just don't like it. I just don't like it. It's not for me. I mean, I'll go jump on El Toro or Iron Rattler or Iron Gwazi before I do one of these. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. And I love talking trash about these roller coasters because they are trash. Okay? I'm sorry they are. Hate me if you want, but they are just garbage. And they need to be torn down. I think they're a waste of space.
So, with that, the battle for last place, I think I have to agree with Gabe. I don't like the SNS free spins. I mean, at least Iron Wolf to me is an actual roller coaster.
I went back and forth on this one longer than you would think. Because Iron Wolf has a reputation of being a horrible roller coaster. There's definitely some roller coasters out there that have that reputation for sure. But I think at the end of the day, the SNS free spins are just so lackluster and so disappointing, and I just wish they didn't exist. So, with that, I guess I'm going to have to go with the free spins as well.
I know, and I think something that like gives Iron Wolf just a little bit of a tick is it is the very first roller coaster from a company that we absolutely love today. And if they had not built that roller coaster, they probably wouldn't exist and we wouldn't have some of the amazing coasters that we have today. If you think about it, me and Gabe have both had a couple B&Ms on our lists. So I think that gives Iron Wolf a little bit of tick because it might have been a horrible roller coaster when it was built, but it was B&M's first, so that gives it something positive. I cannot give anything to the SNS free spins.
I think I have 4 B&Ms on my list.
Dang,
If I had to guess off the top of my head. Because you got Diamondback, you got Montu, you got Raging Bull, and you got Fury. Yeah, that's 4.
Mm-hmm.
And B&Ms are the most popular roller coasters in the world. Just because everybody loves them. I mean, literally everybody loves them. And that's what it comes down to for B&M. And I think S&S is definitely up there as well. I mean, they built Max Force, which is awesome. But they've had their struggles, S&S has. And I think that these free spins just need to stop existing. I'm sorry, but they're gone, in my opinion. I don't ride them anymore. We proved that at Great Adventure that we don't even ride them anymore for credits.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not even worth the credits.
Something. Yeah, that should really tell you something. But with that, what's our next episode? I don't even know.
Our next episode is an old RMC versus the new RMC.
Oh, that's going to be a fun episode. I'm really, really excited to talk about both those roller coasters.
I was going to say, I'm really excited to talk about my roller coasters.
Yeah. Well, another interesting little tidbit is that the coaster I'm bringing, you haven't experienced, and the coaster you're bringing, I haven't experienced. So it's another one of those episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
definitely. Sorry. Another thing I want to plug real quick. Quit it. Another thing I want to plug real quick is we have another special episode coming up. And our next special episode, we're going to be quizzing Gabe on all of his roller coaster knowledge. And we want everybody to submit questions to the email at it's coasterwarspodcast@gmail.com. And we are out of the policy. There are no dumb questions. If you literally just stumbled upon our podcast, don't even know what a roller coaster is, you can ask Gabe that, and he will answer it. He will tell you exactly what a roller coaster is, as he did in this episode. So no dumb questions. You can ask us anything. You can ask opinions on roller coasters. You can ask about different terms that we're using. Literally ask us anything. And I will pause it to Gabe. I'll pick out some questions, and we'll spend a half hour seeing if he really knows as much as he likes to say he does.
Yeah, well, the one thing we didn't mention in the last episode about that is there is no Google involved. There is no roller coaster database involved. This is going to be shut the laptop, how much I can actually get correct or right or wrong, or, well, I don't know. We're not even going to say if I'm right or wrong. I'm just going to bullshit my way through it. But
confidence is half the battle.
It's going to be a fun... Yeah, it's going to be a fun episode, I think. I'm really curious to see if he can stump me or not. So that'll be interesting.
Alright, challenge accepted, dude.
Oh boy, they're going to pull up some roller coaster from freaking Saudi Arabia in 1992. I'll be like, what?
Alright, but with that, join us next week for the old RMC and the new RMC, and then join us the week after for that special episode. Make sure you submit your questions.